Hey, good afternoon. Scott Luton, Greg White with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Greg, good afternoon.
Howdy. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, thank you.
Yeah?
I love this first Wednesday.
I like the first Wednesday of every month because not only is it Italian sandwich discount day at Danny's Deli around the corner, but more importantly, much more importantly,
Really?
it is, I'm just kidding, made that up completely on the fly. Hey, it's all about supply chain today and tomorrow with Mike Griswold from Gartner, one of our most popular live streams each month. So
Yeah.
Mike brings it.
Yeah, no doubt. It's your opportunity to hear from a pro, and really a pro to know and a pro that knows what's going on in the industry, right?
That is right. I think the White House keeps a finger on Mike Griswold's pulse. That's
You might
United
be right.
Nations keeps so, but most importantly, our community really enjoys it as much as we do. And I love the comments they bring and their takes and insights. And maybe, just maybe, Greg, one of our community members will offer some patented Greg White hot takes today.
Really?
Last time, Mike,
challenge?
it is a challenge.
All
Last
right.
time Mike joined us, you were on assignment out in the field covering big stories, and no one quite. We had a couple. Pratik, as I recall, had some great comments, but we didn't really have some hot takes. We'll see what today brings. But
we're
Greg,
talking about resolutions, so I think that could stir up some conversation.
That's right, and anger from the crowd that does not do resolutions. But hey, quick programming note before we get started here today. If you enjoyed this live stream, be sure to check us out wherever you get your podcast from and subscribe for free so you don't miss a single conversation just like this. All right, so before we bring Mike in, let's say hello to a few folks here. We have got T Squared with us, always holding down the fort on YouTube. Happy Hump Day. Famous commercial, right?
Yes. Mike.
That's right. Peter is tuned in via LinkedIn. Great to have you here with us, Peter. The aforementioned Pratik. Great to have you back with us, Pratik. Really enjoyed your commentary last time Mike Griswold was with us. Let's see here. I don't know if my mouse can keep up with the comments here today. Patrick via LinkedIn. Great to have you here with us, Patrick. Now, Peter. So good afternoon, Peter. Welcome to the live stream. Greg, really have enjoyed Peter's commentary on social here recently. I think one of your recent Tequila Sunrise episodes had resonated with Peter.
Yeah, I think he got it off the back of our year-end interview or discussion you and I had, right? So the episode that I did about 9/11. He and I have had a little bit of an exchange. I'm like, hey, thanks for bringing that up. It's just, it always gets dusty in the room whenever I think about that epised, right?
For many people. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Peter spent had a long, successful career in aviation.
So Air Canada.
That's right.
Yep.
So Peter, great to have you here as part of our live stream. Mark via LinkedIn, great to have you here. Good afternoon. Carlo, also via LinkedIn. Hello to you. And y'all feel free, we love to find out kind of where folks are dialed in from or tuned in from.
Yeah. So in fact, Patrick Ustale, I assume is how you say it. Sorry, man, if it's not. I'm interested in him. Mark Gaynor. And I see Aaron Smetak is back.
Outstanding. Daria is back as well. Old DP is back with us here today on the live stream. Great to have you here, Daria. Mike Avra, have enjoyed the articles and commentary. Great to have you here back with us. Mervyn, holding down the fort, Greg, I believe in Ireland. So Mervyn, hope this finds you well.
Yep.
Aaron and Clay and Jeffrey and many others. Welcome, everybody. And we've got a great show tuned in. So, Greg, are we ready to unveil today's conversation?
Let's do it.
All right. With no further ado, let's welcome in Mike Griswold, Vice President Analyst from Gartner. Hey, Mike.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Well, thank you. I didn't know, Scott, that I was competing against the Wednesday deli sandwich. So I'll try to bring my best efforts so you don't feel like you missed out on a good lunch.
Well, you know what the realization is that I think is it a Geico commercial, right? The Mike.
Yes.
What day is it, Mike? Come on.
Yes.
Say it with the same enthusiasm as the guy in the commercial.
Love it. Love it. I love a really good, smart, savvy, and unique marketing campaign. And certainly that's been one. There's been a slew of really cool campaigns over the holidays too. And as we move into the new year. Let's see here really quick before we get started with Mike. Let's see. Jacob took you up on your question there. Jacob is coming to us here from Chattanooga.
Yeah.
We'll talk about a city on the move. So great to have you here, Jacob.
Just up the road from me. So it's probably almost as close as Atlanta.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So Mike, this time of year for, let's say half the population, it's all about New Year's resolutions. And then for the other half, it's something they'll never do. But for you, and whether it's this year or past years, any New Year's resolutions really stick out that maybe either have been successful or they just are one of a kind for you?
Yeah, I think I would put it in the successful category. Probably 4 years ago, my daughter and I started running. She wanted to get into half marathons. So I said, what the heck? And so I've been running probably 2 to 3 half marathons a year since then, right? It started with kind of a New Year's resolution to start running, and it's gotten to the point now where I would never say, I like running in the same sentence, but it's gotten to be something that I do. We try to run at least once a week together. So it's been good. And like I said, probably 3 to 4 a year. So I've got over on the wall here, she made me one Christmas, a bling holder so I can hang my finishing medals up there. So yeah, that's the one that has stuck with me in terms of something that I've actually stuck with over the years.
That makes it simple for future years as well, because you can do just keep running as a New Year's resolution.
Exactly. I don't have to think about it. Just keep continuing.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure you kind of touched on it, but the health benefits from all the training that involves running the 5Ks. What's been your favorite one there? Has it been aerobic conditioning? Do you feel better? What?
I think it's a combination of feeling a little bit better, feeling a little bit healthy, and then frankly being less guilty about eating whatever I want. So, because I know I'm going to be doing some running at some point. So, there's a little bit of there's a couple of different reasons why.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
just like philanthropy, I don't care why you give.
Yeah,
if you want to get healthy, I don't care why you get healthy. If
exactly.
It's so you can eat what you want, that'll do.
Yep.
So before we talk basketball, we're going to pick Mike's brain. In lieu of the lightning round, we're going to talk basketball and coaching here today. Before we do that, let's say hello to a few of the folks here. Jack is with us on Lockdown United Kingdom and Southampton. So Jack, great to have you here. It is. But glad you're with us.
For sure.
BKC on YouTube says ATL FinTech Capital of the U.S. We have a lot of fun with Atlanta being the supply chain capital.
Yeah.
BKC FinTech is alive and well, as Greg can attest here in Atlanta. Sophia is with us. Great to have you, Sophia. Davin, of course, you can't have a live stream without Davin from Canada. And I think I saw one more person here that I want to say hello to. But of course, when I need them, I can't find them.
Yeah, isn't that funny how that works? Also, hey, another quick thing. We call Clay the dog here, right? And everybody knows Clay's first name. The Bear from ESPN, which is kind of how we got the idea, or at least we tied them together.
Right.
I learned he actually has a first name and last name, and it's Chris. Don't remember the last name. I saw somebody quote him recently, Mike, and they showed his name instead of the Bear.
Wow.
Yeah, I had never seen that before. Right?
So you're 50% prepared with the first name missing the last name. You're correct.
Right. Well, it was just such a stunner. I just I was not so focused on the fact that he actually had a name, right?
Right. Well, hey, one more quick call out before we talk coaching and basketball. So, David, I appreciate you sharing. We've never asked you, or maybe.
Yeah, exactly. What town, right?
Clarington, Ontario. So great to have you here. And Peter is from Montreal, soon to be completely locked down, Quebec, Canada.
Yeah, I just talked to somebody in Israel, and they are locking down in the next 2 days, I think. So, and then of course the UK was already locked down.
Right.
We thought, and then they went even tighter lockdowns. All right, so let's talk about something fun like basketball. Then, how about that? And so you have had actually a couple of job changes, Mike, and maybe you can share one at Gartner and
Sure.
and now head coach, right at at Bishop Kelly, correct?
Correct.
Head ladies basketball coach at Bishop Kelly. Tell us a little bit about. It seems those two are kind of conjoining now because you've got more management responsibility. Basically, you're coaching kids and coaching grown-ups. So tell us a little bit about that and what you like about it.
It's interesting because the grown-ups often act like kids. The kids, unfortunately, don't act like grown-ups a whole lot. So, but they are definitely co-mingling. So yeah, in December, I was fortunate enough to be made a team manager. So I have 5 analysts that I work with in our strategy and enablers team. So the analysts that I have responsibility for look after talent, org design. One of our analysts is heavily involved in ESG and CSR. So the environmental, she leads a big body of research in that area. And then one of the newer members is in performance management. So he's covering everything from metrics to cost to serve and those types of topics. So really excited. It's a great group of analysts. It'll be, I have not managed people in quite some time. And that frankly was by design. But this opportunity came around and it'll be a good experience for me. And hopefully I can, I have of the group, I've been with Gartner the longest and been an analyst the longest. So hopefully there's some coaching I can do in terms of them and their analyst roles.
Yeah, it could have been worse. You could have got a magic quadrant, Mike. So.
Yes. Well, I have avoided those like the plague, as you know, Greg, for lots of different reasons. Some of them valid and some of them, frankly, probably irrational. But nonetheless, yes. And then on the coaching side, as you mentioned, Greg, thanks for bringing that up. Bishop Kelly is the only Catholic high school in Idaho. I live just outside of Boise. I've been coaching in the school for, I want to say, 15 years now, maybe.
Wow.
The last 6, I was the JV coach. And then this year, our head coach who had cancer, he's been in remission, but he needed to take a year off. So he's taking a year off to recharge. I've got the varsity for this year. And it's been a good experience, right? The coaching is in a lot of ways is coaching, whether you're coaching JV girls or you're coaching varsity girls. A lot of that is still the same.
When you think about the alignment between those two things, first of all, congratulations. You got 6 seniors, so you got a shot, right? You got some experienced players, right?
We do.
When you think about the alignment, between athletics and professional management, anything come to mind as dually applicable?
Yeah, there's 2 things, Greg, as I was thinking about what we wanted to talk about today. The first is, and I think definitely, as a manager and as a coach, you have to understand the people that you're working with, right? Whether it's a team or whether it's, people in a work environment, you have to recognize that people receive messages differently. And there's different ways and different styles that you can communicate with different folks on your team. So, and it's even, I think, a little bit different between, coaching girls and coaching boys. There are some girls on my team where I can be, direct and, not going to say, Bobby Knight, but for those that are old enough to know who Bobby Knight is. But there are some that you can be really direct with, and there's some you got to find another way to get your point across in terms of things that you want them to do. And I think in the work environment, that's the same way, right? If you think about all the different, personality assessments that are out there, right? Whether it's Myers-Briggs or other things like that, understanding who's on your team and, what's the best way to communicate with them. To me, that's one of the big things I learned very early in coaching, and certainly one of the things I think that's important as you manage a team, in the real world. The second thing that I've learned actually comes from a quote from Bobby Knight, which is, shooters shoot, passers pass, everyone has to defend and rebound. And the way I think that translates into the work environment is everyone has roles. And it's important as a coach and as a manager that you identify kind of what people's strengths are, what role could you see them playing within a team or within your own work team, and then how do you set them up for success, right? It does you no good to try to set up someone who is not a shooter to be successful if that's just not what they do well, right? So I think part as a manager, part as a coach, part of our role is assess what do people do well, how do we play to those strengths, and how do you continually put people in positions to succeed based on their strengths. So those are the two things, Greg, I think that I found the most applicable between coaching and then now as a team manager.
That's really powerful stuff. I mean, I think sports is such a great analogy because you can think about it that way. Shooters shoot. It's hard. I think it's harder for a lot of people in a work environment to realize that this person has this gift versus that person and their gift. And if you do think about it that way, you understand who your shooters are, right? Who your point guards are, who your rebounders. Of course, everybody has to rebound. I get it. Some people just have to get under the basket to rebound.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the other thing too, Greg, is how do you identify both as a player and as a team member, how do you identify that second or third skill that maybe isn't as developed, and how do you get someone that maybe isn't a shooter, right, but has shooter potential? How do you get them into the case where they now are a shooter or a pat or whatever it might be? So I think I think one of the things that I will have to watch out for is to not only focus on the things that people do well, but also focus on what are those things that maybe they want to do well, but haven't necessarily built out that skill. And then how do I help them build out those skills?
Yeah, you make them shoot free throws till they hit 25 in a row, right?
Exactly. I don't have that long, but yes, yes. Conceptually, Greg, I may settle for 5.
Yeah,
but yes,
that's okay.
Your point is very well taken.
Cross training.
Yes.
All right, I love that. So let's say hello to a few folks before we start talking more resolutions, but this time from a supply chain angle. Sylvia, great to have you. You're late. You're getting 3 demerits today. Welcome.
Actually, she redeemed herself. I see that she sent me a shipment, hopefully, of jam. I think that's what.
Oh, wow.
I was going to give you an update, a tracking update there, Greg. You beat me to it. Right. Kevin Bell, good afternoon. He says he sees that the commander of all supply chain knowledge is on today. Kevin,
is that not the truth?
He's probably talking about you, Greg. I don't know that he's talking about me.
I know he's got to be talking.
Saneha, great to have you with us here today. Glad you could join us for most of the discussion. It's a busy time for everybody, but great to have you. Happy New Year to you. Let's see, Sandro Natali, who Greg, if you remember, joined us from AT&T on a live stream a few weeks back. Episode.
Yeah, really great job. Yeah, that was a fun show.
And I agree with his sentiment. Good riddance, 2020.
I agree completely.
That year that must never be spoken or said. Right? Is that
Mike Griswold
of years? Right.
You mentioned Bobby Knight, of course. That famous clip where it's his longest tossed chair. It goes straight across the entire court. Legendary.
Well,
his tantrums.
I can tell you with all the COVID protocols, our benches are, if you've seen any games on TV, pro or college, where they have, like a chair, 6 feet of chair, and there's 3 rows of 4 chairs. It's a lot harder to get to a chair now to throw one than it was when they were all in a line. So we got that going for us.
Well, collateral benefits then.
Right.
Yes.
And Sylvia, and there's several big fans of Bobby Knight in the so we all have our quirks. I'll tell you, Indiana, what an incredible basketball program during his 25, 30 years there. So
yes.
Okay. So now one late breaking here. So Ben, greetings from the UK. Hope you're all well and safe. So Ben, welcome this morning, and likewise you as well. So thanks for joining us here via LinkedIn. Well, I got one more. Sorry, folks. We got a first time watcher. Is it Anna Mary? I want to say Anna Marie. So correct me, however I butchered your name there. But regardless, thanks for joining us here first time. And Anna Mary would love to know where you're tuned in from. Okay, so it's back to work, Mike and Greg.
Yeah.
Let's talk resolutions, but instead of personal resolutions, let's talk about what resolutions, Mike, you think supply chain leaders and even practitioners are making in 2021.
Yeah, I think the first one is a pretty simple one, which is, and I'll put it in the category of just stay focused. So we've learned a lot the last year. I think people have, made some strategic decisions. I think they've set direction for their companies with whatever information they think they have around where we're going to land with the pandemic and the vaccine and all that. And I think the first resolution I would give people is this idea of staying focused. And I'll give you an example from our top 25 research, and we've probably talked about this at some point. But when I look at the traits of those companies that are masters in that masters category of our supply chain top 25, so they've had a top 5 performance 7 in the last 10 years. Yeah. One of the things that they all share is they do not succumb to the shiny object syndrome. They understand who their supply chain is. They understand the role of their supply chain, and they are unwavering in that direction. So I think coming into 2021, that would be my first resolution, or my first recommended resolution, I guess I'll call it, is stay focused. Be true to who you are as a supply chain, and be true to who you are in terms of how the supply chain enables your business. But it's that focus, I think, that's going to be really important as we go into 2021.
Do you think there are a lot of companies, a lot of retailers who needed to make that resolution?
Yes. And I think, frankly, and it's hard to find a silver lining out of last year, but I do think, and we may touch on it a little bit later when you talk about the elevated role of the CSCO.
Right.
I think the one thing, and we have talked about this last year, the one thing the COVID has done has definitely shown a spotlight on the supply chain, good and bad. Yep. And I think it has provided the momentum for organizations in 2021 to have that focus, because there really is, and we talked about this before we joined together, right? I mean, even the best case scenario around normalcy isn't until the fall. And that to me is probably best case and optimistic. So we still have our hands full in running a very externally constrained supply chain around the world. And we need to be able to continue to do that.
Yep. It's interesting you say that next fall, because we did the math here at Supply Chain Now on how many people need to be inoculated every day in order to get everyone inoculated by the end of the year. And
it's a lot,
already
right?
Hundreds of millions of inoculations behind.
Yeah.
7 days into the year.
Right.
Or 6 days into the year. I'm giving up this day.
Yeah.
If you're in Europe.
Yes.
So you're, I think the sooner we face that fact and learn how to deal with it, I think the better off we'll be. But it is interesting that, Mike, you and I for years, and Scott and I for the last, Scott and you and I for the last year and a half or so have talked about the progression of supply chain from necessary evil. I heard somebody say it just yesterday, from necessary evil to competitive differentiator to now in the forefront of customer experience and customer satisfaction and brand brand equity for companies, particularly in retail or that sell to retail, even brands and things like that. So
yeah, well, I'm talking to more and more retailers in particular, where I'm seeing and hearing them talk about, which hasn't happened for many for quite a while. They're using words like supply chain is enabler for our growth, right? Or the supply chain is going to be, how we differentiate ourselves. And I think those organizations that realize the power they have within their supply chains, those are the ones that I think we're going to continue to see have success. Those organizations that said, hey, how do we, and this is probably not necessarily a politically correct description, but how do we weaponize our supply chain?
Right.
Yeah.
You look at, I mean, probably, two of the better examples of that, these will be my words, not theirs. I think Walmart and Amazon are two companies that have found ways to weaponize their supply chain.
Undoubtedly.
And it's, to me, when you see the byproduct of that in terms of service, and the other thing, Greg, you touched on, which I agree with completely, the customer experience. More and more people are working from the customer experience back, which I think is fantastic. And they're asking themselves, this is the customer experience we need to support. Can we do it? And one of the ways that we understand if we can do it or not is the capability of our supply chain. And I was on the phone doing a WebEx yesterday, and with a retailer who said, hey, we need our supply chain to be the yes we can department, not the no but department.
Right.
And to me, that encapsulates, I think, very well the mindset we need to have moving forward in 2021.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, I want to share a couple comments here from the audience. So we're talking resolutions right now for that business leaders, supply chain leaders are making. Rhonda, good morning to you. Good afternoon. Keep connected with your team as remote work continues into at least the summer. Sounds like one of her resolutions she's making. A couple leadership comments here, going back to kind of the basketball analogies. Nadira says the role of a leader is recognizing the skills of each team that each team member has, optimizing them, and helping them develop new skills too. Also amongst peers. That's a great call out there, Nadira. And Pratik says, boss is the one who believes in equality, but a leader is the one who believes in equity. Subtle differences sometimes have a huge impact. Clay says, shouldn't have taken a pandemic for supply chain to get it to the table. And there's some amens in the commentary, which all leads us.
Yep. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
All leads us here to a question for you, Mike. And Greg, we get your follow-up here. So Kevin says, hey, what's going to be harder for 2021? The supply chain in sourcing raw materials or distribution of finished good? Or is it going to be equally hard?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a first pass at that, Greg. I think, and I don't want to give the analyst answer. I think the answer is yes, but I think it varies by segment. I think traditional retailers, I think, are going to continue, depending on where their suppliers are and the type of retailer they are, I think they're going to continue to wrestle with the finished goods piece. If I am a high-tech company, though, I'm probably going to still struggle with the components, particularly components that come out of the Far East. And I think even within retail, if I'm a supermarket retailer, my sense is it's definitely going to be finished goods, right? The apparel segment, where maybe they're having some manufacturing happen, over in China and Asia, right? While it is still a finished goods challenge for them, I think there is some kind of component piece. But again, I think the answer is yes. It just depends on which part of the supply chain you're dealing with.
Yeah, I agree. I think, when you think about things like finished goods, you can't ignore, when thinking about finished goods, returns, because that's going to be huge with the onset of such a massive amount of e-commerce, right? So, there are so many things to be equal here. Just some are going to be more equal than others.
Yep. I agree.
I think there are a lot of potential issues here, and as you alluded to, said directly, Mike, those those companies and retailers and brands and sources, right? Those participants in the supply chain who are focused are the ones who are going to win here, because it's going to be very difficult and very complex, because you never know when or where the sourcing issue is going to come from, when or where the distribution issue is going to come from. I'm thinking, just some examples: bicycles and the parts for those. I talked to a worm farm who has to, they had to outsource their worms to South Africa.
Is that a bit of a sluggish industry, Greg?
Oh my!
Good one. It's a very slimy industry. But and at the same time, there are going to be shifts in consumer needs and patterns and trends and engagement types. So it's going to be coming from all directions, truthfully.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think the other thing, Greg, I'll maybe just piggyback on the last part of your comment. I think one of the things that will be interesting, kind of building off the question we just had about finished goods versus kind of the raw materials, is I'm curious, would love to maybe get the viewers' thoughts on this as well, and Greg and Scott, yours. We have not really seen, at least in my opinion, a significant emphasis the last 12 months on new items, right? We've been focused on rationalizing assortments. We've been focused on giving consumers the key products that they want. But I would argue that the new item introduction cycle has constricted greatly. And I don't know, frankly, that I see any change in that for the next 4 to 5 months. Would be curious your thoughts on maybe what do you guys think we'll see relative to new items, because I don't know that we'll continue that we will see a whole lot of new item activity, but I also be curious people that are watching and listening, maybe what their thoughts are, because that to me has been probably the biggest dynamic that I probably didn't think of until it started to happen, was just the new item pipeline seeming to dry up.
Quick thought there on mine, at least. I think it as well. We got Kevin Bell with us here today. Kevin Bell, your ears been burning because we've been talking about your famous quote from 8 months ago. You can find opportunity without being opportunistic.
Right.
But at the same time, I think it's all about the monetization, demand. If demand's really there, and just how much it brings to the bottom line. I mean, I saw a commercial for the latest and greatest iPhone, and I thought I was still kind of cool because I had the latest one. That next one's rolling out, the massive demand, and of course a massive bottom line play there. So I think with from what I see, a lot of the lower priced items, I think we're going to see. I was walking through Walmart for the first time last night because we've gotten a lot of our groceries delivered. So I haven't seen aisles in quite some time. I was really surprised, from canned goods to some dairy items to some key staples, massive holes still in aisles here in our neck of the woods where we live. So when I think about items on the where there is less of a demand for a new niche here, and certainly a lot less money to be made, why not keep funneling those resources into the core goods? So that's my quick take, Greg.
I hope that there is a constriction of new items. We had way too much assortment, particularly in the States. I mean, I can't speak to a lot of other countries, but we had way too much assortment. We don't need 31 kinds of green beans, right?
Just don't mess with my Italian flat green beans.
Well, I mean, and think about that. I still think back to the first few weeks when, Scott, you and I, we were doing our duty. We went out and put our masks on and did some research in the grocery stores, and I saw I saw olive oil, and I saw certain spices, and and the rest of the shelves were emptied.
Right.
And basically, I think the way that brands and retailers have attacked this is those things, as you said, Scott, that don't accrue to the bottom line or top line. They have finally gone through and done what, Mike, you and I have opined about for decades, and that is they have finally culled their product mix.
Yep.
So one, I don't think we should see a massive reintroduction of products. And two, I think because of what we just discussed earlier, the fact that a lot of these supply chains are struggling just to operate, they can't afford a lot of new item introductions right now. They can't afford to create new supply chains or risk the stability of their current supply chain. And I think the current availability and demand of their supply chains is sorry, a little distracted, David. The current condition of their supply chain went into the determination of cutting brands and labels as much as whether those items were profit centers to begin with. Right. Because some may have been profitable, but they were difficult to source. So they got cut.
So I got to share, we've got a flurry of comments. I'm going to shoot through these and then we're going to need to move along because I really want to get Mike and Greg to weigh in on the Nordstrom news, which isn't new news, but I love the trend. So let's see here. Everyone, of course, Dave, and that might be exactly why we got 31 kinds of green beans. Peter says, seems new product launches will be significantly down as most grapple with meeting demand for current products, which we're all speaking to. Only new products I saw were masks and hand sanitizer repackaged to meet COVID needs. So that's a good point.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Products are still down, and Mike Avera's neck of the woods. Aaron's also a big fan of Italian green beans. Big show. Bob Bova is with us here today, Greg.
Oh, my goodness.
Bob says new items mean more SKUs, of course. Throughput is tough enough with what is already needed in the market. All companies are focused on delivering what is needed the most, not new or updated products, when people are still afraid to run out of paper goods. Kevin agrees. Many of his clients, and he works international supply chain as a trusted legal advisor, didn't launch new products. Let's see here. I had one other. And he also says he deals with helping clients source raw ingredients for supplements and drugs, primarily from China, which we talked a lot, Greg, last time we spoke with Kevin about counterfeiting, right, and authenticity and whatnot. Right now, he sees many companies more focused on sourcing packaging for products. That's a great point. I'll stop there. Packaging, we're going to have to dedicate a whole series of shows around packaging based on all the pressures and the traditional and new related to packaging. It's fascinating. Some of the engineering there.
If the holiday season doesn't make you aware of the excess of packaging, I don't know what will. Right.
Great point. And I'll tell you, I want to eliminate, hopefully Amanda is listening, and more importantly, hopefully she's agreeing with me. I want to eliminate all of our gift wrap next holiday season. I've hated it for years. I love recycling. I was talking to someone on Twitter the other day that was looking for comic books, and I was sharing one of my recycled comic book sources. I love that kind of notion. But next year, gift wrap free. We'll see if Amanda allows us to do that. All right. So Mike and Greg, so much good stuff to talk about. So many comments in the stream I can't get to. Let's talk though Nordstrom. So this is good. So if you're a supply chain practitioner, if you've been there for forever, you're up and coming, this is great news. This continues where the craft, as Greg and has spoke to it earlier, is getting a lot more luster. So Nordstrom made some big news the last couple of weeks as they elevated their chief supply chain officer, Alexis Dupree. Is that right, Greg?
Yeah, that's right.
Into the C-suite officially as part of the company's executive team. Great news. Yeah,
they hired her from Amazon and then created the chief supply chain officer role, I believe.
I think you're right.
And Mike, you spoke to this a little bit earlier in terms of getting that seat at the table that Clay was talking about. And anything that first of all, I admire Nordstrom tremendously. I personally, and I know you can't say this, Mike, but I think they are the greatest fashion retailer on the planet. Their customer experience and customer service has been legendary for decades, many, many decades. Their execution at retail, their merchandising vision, you and I, Mike, old retailers, I think we kind of admire those that are really good at the craft. And Nordstrom is one of the best. So, I'm curious if you think this is a trend setting, following a trend, or just part of the evolution at Nordstrom in particular? I mean, what's your thought?
I think, Greg, it's interesting when we look at the chief supply chain officer role in general, right? Whether it's in retail or other industries, it is relatively new compared to other titles that we've had in the supply chain. I think it's great that we're seeing it in retail. I think retail, as in other aspects of the industry, is lagging other industries in not only having a chief supply chain officer role, but having it elevated to be part of the C-suite.
Yeah.
When you look at our top 25 population, again, if I go to that, most of those companies outside of retail, have a chief supply chain officer, and that person is already embedded within the C-suite. So, I think for us in retail, I think I would maybe characterize it more as this is something we should be doing. We should be following this lead from Nordstrom, and we should be having, someone that is responsible for the end-to-end supply chain, responsibility for linking it to the customer experience, and definitely that role. If nothing else has been true of the pandemic, and the role that the supply chain plays, it is the fact that it deserves to sit at that C-suite level with everyone else, because without them, nothing happens. And I think people have now come to that realization around the importance of the supply chain.
No product, no program, Scott Luton, right?
No true words.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it is time, and I think retail, as we have bemoaned for years, also, Mike, it feels like all we have done is sit around and complain, doesn't it, when I say it like that? But I'd like to consider us visionaries who have been trying to pull retail along with us. Let's go with that. And we have recognized that supply chain needed to take more of a forefront type role. I honestly don't think, I know I didn't, I don't think anybody really saw it being the brand equity and customer experience lever that it is today. But wow, and that was an awakening for me, and I've been preaching it ever since. But I don't think even I recognize that. You and I get to look at the industry from the outside looking in so often. I can see why it's such a struggle for retailers to be able to convert their thought, because even I think of the chief supply chain officer as being significantly similar to the chief technology officer. Even when elevated to the C-suite, you would sit in conversations and they would say, now let's talk about the business side, now that we've talked about the tech side, as if technology isn't part of the business. And I think supply chain was similarly thought of. So.
I think a couple of things have happened, Greg. I mean, I think if we rewind the clock, when you and I said supply chain, what people heard or what people actually had was distribution centers and transportation.
Yeah,
that was their supply chain, right? And if they wanted to think of themselves sophisticated, they called it logistics, right? I think a couple things have happened, right? People have realized that we need to think about our supply chain more from an end-to-end perspective. So the definition has naturally evolved.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that's happened, if you look around retail, and if you look at who is landing some of these chief supply chain officer roles, yes, I'm sure there are some chief supply chain officers that have grown organically in the organization, but you're also finding chief supply chain officers in retail that worked at FedEx, that worked at Amazon, that worked at places that were ahead of the curve relative to the supply chain. And they knew what a world-class supply chain looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I think, if anything, we're going to see more of that. We're going to see more cross-pollination into retail, either across segments like Amazon coming into fashion, and other industries that have, an undisputed supply chain expertise, like someone like FedEx. We're going to start to see, I think, more of that come into retail, and that's going to force, especially when they're in that C-suite, That's going to force some of those cross-functional end-to-end discussions to happen that maybe haven't happened in the past. So to me, I think that this is something that, ideally we will be able to continue to talk about over the course of our time together, because we're going to see more and more of these things start to come to life.
Yep. So I want to share along these lines. Neha says, couldn't agree more. I hate it when I see supply chain clubbed in with manufacturing, operations, facilities, and the rest. Supply chain is a beast in itself that needs attention at the C-suite level. Peter says, having started my working career as an order picker 41 years ago, I learned very early that supply chain was the most essential part of a successful business. Hey,
and then he went to work for the airlines. Come on, man.
Let's see here. Bob Bova says, when you watch XPO split into two companies to better focus, when you see companies decide between 3PLs or self-managed distribution centers, in-country focus on raw material purchases, overall costing, how can any C-suite position be more important? He asked rhetorically. Great point.
Yeah, yep. And I think he makes a great point, because there is a lot of specialization. XPO is not done. This two companies was not the plan originally. It was closer to 4 or 5, and they're not done. And this begs a question I would love to ask Mike here in just a second.
So competitively, Marie, great point. Macy's added a chief supply chain officer a couple of years ago, and we want to make sure we're loud and clear. We're not holding up this news from Nordstrom as if it's a first by any means. I know Marie and Greg and Mike,
right?
That's right. We all understand this. This has been thankfully a many years movement. This is just one of the latest, and which is kind of interesting, Greg, to your earlier point, as you were kind of bragging on Nordstrom and its operations and customer experience. They work, I'm going to not say late to the party, but I wonder where they can take it, from here based on, this latest move. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to, I mean, when this seismic societal disruption has been as hard on the best fashion retailer, right, arguably on the planet, as it has, that will always be a question, right? But their eyes are wide open now, and I think that's the important thing. And when that organization focuses on something, it's I just want free clothes, Bob. When that organization focuses on something, they get it done, right? And that's why, I sing their praises.
Agreed.
So Marie worked at Macy's.
Well, you want free stuff from them too, Greg?
No.
And just
no.
Standard
how diplomatic I need to be about other.
That's right. We're talking about the news here. No Nordstrom affiliation, no Nike affiliation. Right.
It is what it is, right? I mean, just like any of these other high performers, and one I think we have left out to some extent is Target. I mean, yes. Talk about a late bloomer, but blooming nonetheless and significantly. They have put a ton of money into their supply chain.
Agreed.
Hey, they have.
2 quick comments from the audience, and then Mike, we're going to need to get kind of some of your last thoughts here. I know you've got a hard stop. I wanted to call out here, going back to packaging. I think this is, plus he's my brother. I wanted to share his comment here. So good afternoon, Clay. Packaging sustainability is maybe the most impactful environment issue of our day, given the e-commerce economy. I don't think that's overstated at all. I think it is. And if it's not the top, it's certainly, on the short list. Also want to say hello to Demo. Demo is with us, as he said it from what did he say a second ago? Well,
he's taking a break. Yes,
that's right. Yeah. So great to have you with us, Demo. Okay. So Mike, there's so much. I mean, Greg, it always happens like this, right? We can never. Yeah. We need a 6-hour episode each month with Mike.
Here, give me the number of your next client, your analyst meeting. Yeah. I'll just delay it 10 minutes.
So, when you start to want, you were just with us. We had to make an adjustment in December based on your busy, crazy calendar. Has there been anything in the last couple of weeks beyond what we've already addressed that may really have caught your attention here lately?
Yeah.
I think within my world as it relates to Gartner, right, on the supply chain side, when I look at, and this piggybacks I think a little bit on what we talked about last month, one of the things that has surfaced, I think, is a desire both from our client perspective, but also from the analyst perspective, is our continued deep dive into talent and leadership. When I look at what are we writing about, what are people asking us about, we saw, someone had an earlier comment about the whole working remotely piece, right, and staying connected with your teams. I think almost all of our clients are going to be continued remotely working through the summer. I think is what I'm hearing from most folks. So I think for us and for organizations, I think that focus on leadership and talent needs to continue to be, a high priority. I don't know whether I would call it, a New Year's resolution, because typically resolutions are things you hadn't been doing and now you want to start doing. I think the talent piece and the leadership piece is something we need to be doing all the time. And I think when we circle back, let's say in December of this year, I'm pretty confident that one of the things we'll look back on is the work people have done in their organizations as it relates to talent. To me, that's the big thing that will hold all of this together as we move forward into 2021.
Excellent point. Greg, give me a 2-minute piggyback thought on Mike's commentary there.
I mean, I don't know exactly what more to say there, which I know sounds rare, but things are going to change, and I think the one thing, as much as we just said at the beginning of this segment, we said we're better equipped going into this year. I think things are going to change in ways we don't yet understand, and that's going to be a significant challenge for organizations. And we do have a significant talent shortage in supply chain, at retail, and we're going to see some, and of course, people are, we talked about it on the buzz. People are opting out of the workaday world. We talked about the she session, right?
Right.
Women who are selecting out of the workforce. And as we talked about in the last quarter of last year, baby boomers are selecting out at an even greater rate than they were in previous years, which was 10,000 a day. So right. We're going to see some dramatic shifts. We're going to see some dramatic shifts in management. I have a feeling that Mike is going to be on the forefront of making some discoveries there in two ways, right, on his basketball team right. and with his new team at Gartner. So I'm interested to see what he can learn and share with us. He might become a leadership and human resources, Lord help us, analyst as well.
As Kevin Garnett once said, everything's possible. But hey, two quick thoughts there. And Bob stole one of them from me. Great point. Keeping the talent you've got, but also reutilizing talent. If you think about some of the talent that maybe, some of their roles are being automated, how can you take those great people and reapply them? I think that's going to be a big thing moving forward. But secondly, has been proven by some of the most successful companies that have navigated 2020, who've invested in leadership development and supply chain leadership development for the last several years prior to the pandemic. Those companies have been better off and they've navigated more successfully. Yep. So hopefully that means more investment in professional development of the team you have at all echelons. So we'll keep our finger on the pulse there. All right. So Mike, I know you've got a hard stop here. Let's make sure folks know how to connect with you and all the great things that you are doing over at Gartner, helping us stay more informed and understand the signals we should be paying attention to. So Mike, how can folks connect?
Yeah, still the easiest way, Mike.Griswold at Gartner.com. I know I said in the December session, one of my things to work on for this year was to be, bring myself into the 21st century around LinkedIn and social media. So I'm still working on that. Hopefully I'll have better news when we get together next month, but email is still probably the best way to get in touch with me right now.
Mike, we're keeping metrics on your LinkedIn activity. So we're establishing a baseline now, and
Well, good. The bar should be pretty low, so then almost anything should look like an improvement.
Always a pleasure, Mike. Always a pleasure. Greg, we love this. This series has been great for us, great for the community, and I always leave here much more informed. What about you?
It's as therapeutic as it is as knowledge building for me. So I just really appreciate being able to talk to someone who's such a great talent in the industry. And it's always great talking to you anyway, Mike. So if we can't play golf, I guess we'll keep talking retail. And
this will be the next best thing, Greg.
There you go.
Well, big thanks as we, Mike, as you depart. We'll see you next month. Big thanks to Mike Griswold, Vice President Analyst with Gartner. Thanks so much.
Everyone. Have a good day.
You too.
Take care.
All right. Another wide-ranging, but I like how we dove in at a certain depth with some of those topics.
Yeah, there's a red thread there, isn't there? I mean, it really is about the change that is needed and the change that we'll continue to adapt to. So I think that's it. It happens in regard to your supply chain operations, your retail operations, your human capital management, your life probably, right? Certainly the relationships with your customers.
Yep, that's right. It'll be interesting to see how organizations are evaluating those proactive investments. As everyone knows, cutting costs. You still have plenty of organizations. That's where they start. That's where their strategies start and stop. Mm-hmm. But as has been proven on a variety of levels and a variety of sectors in 2020, it's those organizations that have been able to put most of those chips ahead of the big cards and ahead of the big deals and hands in the right spots to become less fragile. So we'll see how that plays out in 2021 and beyond, really. All right.
Less fragile. I love that.
Well,
you can't say that enough, right? I mean,
I agree. I wish I could claim it.
Yeah, well, you could, because you've got the mic.
Our dear friends at let's see here, Gray Orange and Cap Gemini is where I first heard that. So we're looking forward to reconnecting, by the way, with Cindy at Cap in the next week or two.
Yeah.
All right. So Greg, right before we sign off, we are doing a replay of your very unique and well-received live stream from last week on Tequila Sunrise this Thursday. Give us a sneak peek.
Yeah. So we talked about how to give, how in the season of giving, how you can start giving as kind of a core value, as a core activity for yourself, and how to do it is, and I'll give you the 3 steps, and then we'll go into them on the show. Give simple, give small, but give now.
I love it. It's just that simple. And I enjoyed you and Corinne and Kevin and Enrique and Amanda and Clay popped on, I think, for a little while. Really enjoyed the conversation. Love any conversation that focuses on real, meaningful giving. Big part of what we're doing here. So look for that. Look for Tequila Sunrise, TECH. Tequila Sunrise. I was a little behind that thought there. That's right. Look for that episode Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts, and you will enjoy it, I'm sure, as much as we have. Hey, I want to call out a couple of things here really quick before we sign off. Bob Bova says it's about respect. Supply chain is getting some now. I agree. Mm-hmm. Great point, Bob. Sneha says, I feel adopting a circular model can be such a great way of cutting costs and reusing stuff. I'm with you,
ma'am.
Sneha, I wish I was smart enough to build those models. And I think that's what a lot of organizations are trying to find, those that have been there and done that, to do so in a very successful way. But that's not just the future, that's the here and now. It's a great point there, Sneha. Anna Mary, and I hope I'm saying that right. Please shoot me a note if I'm not. But she is from Atlanta, Supply Chain City, by the way. She said earlier, so great to have you here. Thanks for your feedback. All right, so Pratik says he loves the way Greg ends every live stream. All right.
Get ready, Pratik. Here it comes.
Well, hey, everybody. Hope y'all have had a great halfway start to the week. I tell you, it's hard to believe it's already Wednesday. The year has gotten off on such a fast start. But thanks Oh, I got it right. Excellent. Anna Mary, thanks so much for that quick feedback. But more importantly, thanks to all the community. Y'all weighed in.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get to all the comments and insights. That's my favorite part of any of these live streams. And I really have enjoyed the back and forth and some of the commentary conversations. But at the end of the day, whatever you do, taking a page from the giving conversation, Greg just said, hey, do good, give forward, but be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.